we are. I believe we are live now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, welcome to Juicy Sacred Living TV. This is episode number 22, and today...
It is. It's 22.
It's
okay.
22.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi. And you might remember last time we talked about spiritual, not religious, and the time before that we talked about creative enjoyment. Mm-hmm. And today we're going to talk about what is the juicy in Juicy Sacred Living.
Which is like, juicy is like, what does it make you think of when you think juicy? We've had some questions about that, and we've been on the road for quite a long time. Actually, it'll be 2 years coming up soon, and we have this decal on our car. The stuff that you put on your car when you're advertising a business, and it says Juicy Sacred Living: The Great Adventure Awaits. Then it has our website, juicysacredliving.com. And many times people will look at the decal on the car and be like, they'll read it and then they go, huh. There'll be this little smile that comes up. And sometimes we've even had laughter, like actual, like hysterical laughter.
I've had people come up to me and ask me what kind of juices we sell.
Yeah, right? So we're not quite sure what people are thinking entirely, but we thought we should clarify what we mean by juicy, because juicy sacred living is like a whole nother level. Sacred living is awesome all by itself, because sacred means that which is,
infused with the divine.
Yeah, like holy and some people think of sacred as spiritual, although in indigenous philosophy, there's no separation of spiritual from everything else in life. So that just seems like a mental disorder to indigenous understanding. But sacred by itself is like this idea of, that which is considered divine or holy. But if you reclaim that everything is sacred, then that means that the earthly stuff that we enjoy is sacred too, which is what's juicy.
That's right.
That's the juicy part of juicy sacred living, is enjoyment. Like we talked about creative enjoyment a couple episodes ago, and that whole idea of joy, that whole idea of enjoyment. And it goes further than that. It's enjoyment of the mundane. It's enjoyment of what we consider to be like our daily pleasures. So like food, for example.
Wine. Good coffees.
So solid matter, liquid matter. The Bloody Marys that we talked about making with you on Bloody Mary Day, the national holiday, January 1st, is actually Bloody Mary Day. And we talked about showing you our recipe for making them out of sake instead of vodka, because we're not vodka fans, and sake is a little... it's rice wine, so it's, much tamer in terms of the alcohol content. And so we call those Bloody Marus, because Maru is a Japanese word. But we also do Bloody Marias, which is the tequila version of the Bloody Mary, which is really good too.
Yeah.
But that's just another example of something that's really juicy, is the enjoyment of like simple things, food and art and culture and history and the land, like going places, people, enjoying music.
Yeah.
Like the feeling of a really nice blanket, or wearing, clothes that feel really good. So essentially juicy is the enjoyment of the senses. It's the enjoyment of what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. And how that adds this whole other level of enjoyment to being a physical being in the world. If we're sacred, that means we're like, spiritual. But the enjoyment factor is also an important component of that. The juicy factor.
That's the physicality part, that
right.
We're in these bodies for a reason, and not just to escape them, but to actually enjoy them, to be here, to be physical, to feel the connection to the earth, to feel the sun on our face, to feel the wind in our hair, to experience the waves on the beach, feeling the water, everything.
You're reminding me of a moment of juicy sacredness these moments kind of stand out in my life. A moment of having been swimming in the ocean on a hot summer day.
Mm.
And, the enjoyment of being in the cool Atlantic, water after being hot and sweaty on the beach. This was back in the day when we used to sunbathe, when that was like considered to be okay to do. And then the feeling of the cool water, on the skin, and like, oh God, is that amazing? That feels so good. And then taking it a whole other level, coming out of the ocean and laying back down on the beach, and the feeling of the heat of the sun baking the salt in the water, on my skin, like that sensation of like the water evaporating off, and that heat, just like the kiss of the sun, And so, I mean, I'm describing this, and it sounds like a very sensual experience, because it was. It is. And that is the physical world. The physical world is intended to be a sensual experience. And by sensual, it doesn't always have to mean sexy, although it can lead to that. Certainly, we hope it does,
Right.
But sensual in the sense of our senses being engaged. Sensual, our senses being engaged. And so that sight, touch, smell, taste, and what did I forget?
Hearing.
Sound.
This thing that hopefully you're hearing right now.
That those are doorways. Those are gateways into the appreciation of the sacredness of life. Mm-hmm. That, we tend to discount them. We tend to, because we're used to them, and it's just like our daily, we forget how precious and how miraculous this physical life actually is. And that each of these senses being engaged is literally a gateway to our experience of this reality as sacred. That we have a choice in that we can choose that, that we can decide, oh my God, this, like, I remember a meal in Paris.
Which one?
I remember one in particular. It was one where we walked. We were staying in a little Airbnb near the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, we looked out the window, and there was the Eiffel Tower.
And we walked into the neighborhoods in the night, past the Eiffel Tower, and found this little Italian place, a little Italian place in Paris. So you would think that's kind of odd, but it was just this little cafe, just like 6 tables tops. It was tiny. It was crammed into this tiny little space, and we were like bumping into each other, like trying to
wedged in this little table in a little nook.
Yeah, and the chef, who was the owner, came out himself. He was this older guy, definitely sort of quintessential Italian, fellow, comes out, and he recommends this dish. And do you remember the name of it? It was like this creamy, mushroomy pasta dish, and it was with fresh pasta, and it had this, like, there was just an elevated sensory experience, and the whole thing added to that elevated sensory experience. The whole thing of being in this amazing place, and the culture, and the air, and the people, and then walking into this cafe, and the chef, coming over and, telling us what needed, recommending the dish and recommending the wine. And
oh, yeah.
The whole thing was like this sensory overload of perfection. It was just this incredibly juicy moment. And so when the dish arrived, I mean, I wouldn't say I was orgasmic, but I would say it was pretty darn close. It was a really amazing experience. So that's juicy to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that you're describing that, and I'm remembering the feeling of the entire experience there. And it felt touched by the divine, because everything was infused with this deep care and understanding of what it takes to have a fantastic experience. And his devotion, and the entire staff was devoted to creating an experience that was relaxed, engaged, and where the food was just art at the highest level.
Yeah.
And the experience of it was like an art form too. And it felt divine. The whole thing felt divine to me.
But here's the question: was that created from the outside, or were you open to the experience and therefore you experienced it that way?
I was open to it, but they opened it up too. So
So,
their intention to create this special experience amplified my experience.
and I didn't experience it so much as them having an intention to create a special experience. I just think that the vibe and the pace is slower in Europe, in some places in Europe, France in particular. Like, to go have a sensual experience, go to France, because the pace is slow. And what that brings to mind for me is that in the experience of juiciness in our life, that if we're at this frantic breakneck pace where we can't actually be present in our body and slow down and taste and smell and see and hear and touch, then of course those gateways to seeing and experiencing life as sacred are closed.
Wow.
And so what we experience then is, oh God, life's a bitch and then you die. I mean, it's like we have to suffer through it. We have to slog our way. We have to, like it's this fight all the time, instead of like, wait a minute, back up. Hold up a minute, back it up, slow down, taste that pomegranate seed. Oh my God, that seed just, exploded in my mouth. Holy, I mean, I'm just, the taste is sending these waves up right through my brain. Oh my God, that is unbelievable. Boom. That's juicy sacred living. That's the moment where the gates are open, the sensory gates are open, and we suddenly understand, even if it's just briefly, that we are in this miraculous tapestry in the physical matrix where we are experiencing all of the effort of the divine to produce itself in the physical form, and that we get to be here to enjoy it. Oh my God. Is that not the incredible thing that we all get to have if we just choose it? All we have to do is choose it.
All we have to do is choose it and pay attention. And I really like what you said about slowing down. Even right before we were going to do this video, my brain was just spinning on all the things I have to do. And that kept me feeling separated from any juicy part of the juicy sacred life we're living. Because I was caught up in that spiral and that vortex of, oh my God, all this stuff that has to be done.
Well, and that's head living, isn't it?
It is.
That's intellectual. That's being in your head.
It is. But the moment we decided to do this and decided what we were going to talk about and how that was going to feel, I was able to anchor into my body, and now I'm feeling it. I mean, I'm here at a different level.
Well, and even that, that leads to how we portray ourselves and how we show up in the world changes, because we're in touch with that, right?
Yes.
And so even the way that this video is framed, what is the juicy and juicy sacred living? That's not very juicy, is it? That's sort of like, intellectual. Maybe the question should be, what's juicy in your life? Join us to find out more. Like there's a different way. We feel different. We express differently. We show up differently when we are actually tapped into our body. And by the way, this is the wave that's coming, is being more in our body than ever before. The Earth's evolution and how we're all moving as a culture and a species is like coming back into our body. That initial separation of the head from the body and the body from the divine, that happened thousands of years ago, is now being corrected. So we are right on track for the juicy sacred living. We are right on track.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I think I'll have to edit that.
I think so too.
Well,
it's very clinical. What is the juicy and juicy sacred living?
Well, inquiring minds want to know.
It's true. Maybe you could keep that as the tagline.
Yes.
But the question, what is juicy in your life? What is juicy? So let us ask you that question.
Yeah.
Where is the juicy in your life? Where is the juicy in your life? I can think of a whole bunch of places where it is in my life if I'm slowing down, if I'm being present, if I'm engaging in the senses and being like, oh yeah, here I am in this like crazy miraculous moment in the physical realm.
So put them in your puts what is juicy in your life in the comments. We're
Yeah.
really curious. I'd really like to see what it is that you find juicy, how
Yeah.
you connect to the physical world in a way that connects you to the larger world.
Yeah. Like, music. So, for some people, music is the place that is just like, it's transportive, or
As a teenager, I think it kept me on this planet.
Yeah.
The music that I listened to kept me from just not wanting to be here anymore.
yeah. And then, getting together with family when everybody's in a good space. As our children can attest.
Yes.
That getting together as family and just enjoying each other and just like, oh my God, what incredible people our children are. Like,
Yes.
what amazing people our children are.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying them. And, of course, food. We've already talked about food. I love food. Oh, food is so fabulous. There's so
Yes.
many different ways it can show up. So many ways it can delight us. It's so incredible,
Well, and the other part of food is when you eat food prepared by somebody who infuses it with love. There's
And you're paying attention.
when you're paying attention, because
Uh-huh.
that's another whole level. It's not just the food that's happening, but it's the energy put into the food by the people who make it that really take it another whole level. And that's certainly the case when we're cooking with intention. I notice that the food has just another whole flavor.
And I'm noticing just in talking about this, it sounds so clinical, and yet we're trying to describe something intellectually that really is not intellectual at all. It's like being an animal in your body. It's being in your body and just being in the experience of being in your body, like just the sensory experience. It's like shut off the laboratory scientist in in the brain and just be like, oh, just experience. And isn't
Yes.
that what this is all about anyway?
I think so. If we didn't need bodies, we wouldn't have them. If we weren't supposed to experience this world in a physical way, we wouldn't have physical bodies. That's my belief.
Yeah. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the awareness of this, and I'm grateful for the remembrance of this, because I do forget. As a human, I definitely get caught up in my own little circles and wear that path out in my own head, running around, being intellectual, and like the remembrance to drop back in and be like, oh gosh, yes, that's right. That's why we're here. And that's enjoyment while we're here. I mean, can you imagine the regret at the end of one's life for not having actually been fully physical? Like actually not being a physical person, like enjoying the experience of being physical, all those ways that we can. So let's enjoy. Let's have some fun.
Let's put some focus on the juicy.
I think that's what we just did.
Yes.
And now you're gonna make me blush.
Well, I didn't mean it that way, but okay.
Okay, I guess that was my head that went there. Okay. All right. So we will enjoy seeing you next time, every Friday at noon Eastern time. We're here no matter where we are or what we're doing. We are committed to coming and showing up for you here on Juicy Sacred Living TV. And you can join us also for Juicy Sacred Sundays, where we take a deeper dive into this idea of Juicy Sacred Living and life as a sacred walk, a sacred journey. And you can find out more about that at the link that we will be posting very soon at our Patreon page.
Well, thank you for joining us. As always, we will see you next Friday.
And by the way, I'm Leisha Berry.
And I'm Peter
That's
Berry.
Peter Berry, because we didn't introduce ourselves in the beginning.
They know who we are now.
But in the famous world, out there in the masses, they don't know who we are yet. So we should say our name at the beginning.
Well,
Every
now they
time.
have to watch it until the end to find out who we are. I kind of like that. We were seeing that last night. We watched an old movie, and they put all the credits in the beginning, so you know who all the actors are in the beginning. And now you have to wait until the end. in movies. So maybe we go back to the old school. Put our names in the beginning again. I just did it. I just totally confused you, didn't I?
No, I'm not confused. I'm just wondering what's happening inside that head of yours.
Well,
Okay.
anyway, we'll see you next time, everybody.
So, well, yes, we'll see you next Friday, and we'll let you know about Juicy Sacred Sundays as soon as we have that link up for you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.